Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. How's everybody out there? Hope you're all good. I wanted to reflect on the whole transfer saga that's been kind of the talk of the town, talk of the country, internationally actually for the last couple of weeks at least, and that's Alexander Isak. And I want to give a different perspective, being a sports psychiatrist. So I am a psychiatrist who is very passionate about sports, and I think, especially with elite sports. So I hold a IUC diploma on mental health in elite sports. So I have good insight into the psychology and the mental well-being, mental state of elite athletes. And I think this whole saga with Alexander Isak um, can be seen in a different lens. Obviously, it's a very emotive topic. Newcastle fans. I'm actually from Newcastle, but living currently in Dubai, and previously lived in Qatar for 8 years. Also spent a lot of time in Saudi as a youngster. So I get it. I get the feeling of betrayal by the Geordies because of the actions and the conduct of Mr. Alexander Isak. But I think possibly if we take a step back, if we look at it holistically, there are different factors to consider. So we do know that these elite sportsmen and women have a different outlook on reality and have different experiences growing up. They're usually identified as very talented from a young age, and then they get praised and rewarded for their talents. Let's stick to football. So people like Alexander Isak, obviously he must have flourished from a young age and been identified as a super talent. And this then kind of distorts the reality in terms of how they live compared to people like you and I. And so, from a young age, temperament is very important for these sportsmen and women, and having family around them that ground them is important. However, it's much easier said than done. So, if you look at the developmental trajectory or the way these kind of superstars are brought up, they're used to getting, a lot of treatment that is unusual. And they get praised and get rewarded, and this activates the dopamine system. So dopamine is basically the pleasure hormone, and so they get brought up, everything's done for them. They're kind of jetting here and there from a young age, getting a lot of money, and then you get to the point where they become, the elite of the elite. And so, for example, Alexander Isak is now in the Premier League, banging in the goals, and one of the best strikers in the world. That comes with it many dangers and challenges, and then the group around him. So it sounds like, I don't know, but that sounds like the agents have a conflict of interest in terms of every time a new contract is signed or a move is touted, they will get financially rewarded. So with Isak, he came to Newcastle a couple of seasons ago, and Eddie Howe developed him, and he's now become one of the best strikers in the world. And then, so if you can think about it from Isak's perspective, he wants more money, and it's not just down to greed. So it often reflects, as a psychiatrist specializing in sports, it can reflect a sense of self-esteem and psychological well-being. That, look, I'm one of the best strikers in the world, but I'm not being financially rewarded as I should be. Now, that can be seen as greed, but it can also be seen from his side as something that, he's worked hard to achieve. And if somebody's offering him double or triple the money, that can be very tempting. And then on top of that, if the agent's in his ear, that can become a very toxic situation, which clearly it has. And I think there are a lot of learning points in terms of Newcastle could have handled it better. Kind of isolating him is probably not the best thing, because he'd be influenced by people around him, and maybe Liverpool as well, the media kind of stirring things. So these kind of situations are very best managed, where he should have been incorporated into the group and kept in the group, and shielded from all the media hype as much as possible. And then it comes down to having a good medical team. And nowadays, most elite teams should have a psychiatrist and psychologist as part of the team to, do regular mental health and well-being reviews to identify any potential stresses, anxiety, depression, and general stress related to things outside of football, and doing a profile of each player, their strengths, their weaknesses, their influences, negative and positive, and then the medical team, including a psychiatrist and a psychologist, should really work with each player and identify how situations can be resolved. It's not always possible, but it gives that data is really important for the management team to incorporate into a clear plan for the patient, for the sportsman. So for Isak, I think it would be really helpful, not just for Isak, but for the team, management team and players, to have access to counseling and psychological support, because there's a lot of research, and from my experience, these high pressured sportsmen with a lot of attention, stress, are at a higher risk of developing things like addiction, things like anxiety, depression, performance anxiety. So having a support system is very important for these elite players. And I think if somebody is able to, just have a chat with Alex, with a professional background like myself in sports psychiatry, that could help. But I don't know. It's, I'm happy to, if anybody has contacts within Newcastle, or with Isak's team, I'm happy to support him, and have a chat with him, and see if I can help. Because for me, Newcastle is very important, being from the area, although I don't sound like it. I'm very passionate about Newcastle doing well, and they're on a trajectory which is causing a lot of ripples in the football world, and a lot of barriers with the whole kind of PSR issue. So I think as fans, we should try and think about it from a holistic approach. It's not always easy because it's a very passionate sport and very passionate supporters. So I just wanted to give my perspective as a sports psychiatrist, because I think having a sports psychiatrist help in these situations can be beneficial and can help resolve the situation. My own take on it is that he's one of the best strikers in the world, and Newcastle needs to do what's in their best interest. The Saudis, the PIF, Sheikh Yassir, they have a lot of money, and I don't think, even if Liverpool offer 150 million, I don't think Newcastle should accept it. And as a matter of principle, keep Alex. And if he refuses to play, he refuses to play. But I think Newcastle need to play hardball and try and get him sold after a year to another team, because it really will be detrimental to Newcastle as a club to sell him to to Liverpool. And I think they should make it hard and act very professionally, and not give in to the pressure of media to sell him to Liverpool. It doesn't make any sense. They don't need the money. Like I said, PIF, Sheikh Yassir, they have the richest owners in the world. They don't need the money. And so I think they can absorb Alex being, sidelined in Newcastle, and then sell him next year to a club overseas. And as I mentioned, from my experience as a sports psychiatrist, yes, it's like a kid. He might throw a tantrum, but eventually he will want to play football because he's a professional, and he needs to maintain his stock and be, it's a World Cup year, so he won't like to be out of the limelight and not be scoring goals. So it would only benefit Newcastle. Moving on to my next point, which is the mindset and the mentality of Yasir Rumayyan, PIF. So as I mentioned, I've lived in Qatar 8 years, interacted with the royal family, the Al Thanis. I'm currently in Dubai. I spent many years as a youngster in Saudi, so I understand the culture. As a Muslim, I also understand the mindset. And PIF have very clearly stated that Yassir has stated that they want Newcastle to be number one. Now, obviously, there's been a lot of restrictions with PSR, but in this specific situation, they would not want to be undermined. And I think the whole situation with Alex and Liverpool trying to stir the pot and causing a lot of kind of challenges, uh, definitely Yassir will not like this, PIF will not like this. They want to be the best, and often it comes down to relationships, and deals are usually done in this part of the world through what we say wasta, through connections. And and it definitely looks like it. Sheikh Yassir is very upset at the way things have been dealt. And I don't think, as a matter of principle, he will allow or sanction, irrespective of how much money Liverpool offer, for Isak to go. It's a matter of the way deals are done in this part of the world, and feeling undermined or disrespected, or people going behind their back. He will definitely not like it. PIF will definitely not like it, and this is why I think they shut down the initial bid from Liverpool. Now, you can never say never, but from my insight into this part of the world and how deals are done, and kind of these elite businessmen, wealthy, royal family as well involved, they will be very, very unhappy with the whole situation, and as a matter of principle, refuse to sell him. And I think this is the right decision for Newcastle. So I just wanted to share my thoughts. Hopefully that it's a different perspective because everybody's talking about it. As I mentioned, I'm happy to be involved with Newcastle. If they need someone like me as a sports psychiatrist, I'm happy to get involved in fan channels and just give my perspective from somebody who's living in the Middle East, has lived here, understands the culture and the mindset, and also being a sports psychiatrist. Last thing to say is there's a real mess. So I think PIF and Sheikh Yassir, they left things to be, because they don't want to be involved in the day-to-day things. They have so many projects and so many investments that they need to look after, so they will appoint people to sort these things out. But clearly there's been a mess, there's been a vacuum, and PIF will no doubt sort this stuff out as soon as possible. Okay, have a great evening, everybody, and hopefully good news about Sesko. Take care. Bye bye.